Regular meeting today is January 14th. It is 7 p.m. I ask you to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Davis, would you read our opening statement, please?
Good evening. As Secretary of the Bloomfield Board of Education, I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. The board, superintendent, and I are pleased that you have joined us as we celebrate achievement, review information, and make policy decisions related to the effective operation of Bloomfield Public Schools. This is a regular meeting, and all items that will be discussed or voted on this evening have been posted as required by state law. As the Bloomfield Board of Education, we are here to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budget, contracts, and personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or solve problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent. Meetings of the board are open to the public. It is the time when the board conducts its business of governing the school system in a public arena. The regular meetings are not meetings with the public. Therefore, comments from the audience will be confined to the time designated for the public to address the board. Decorum and courtesy are important elements in effective public meetings. Please silence your cell phone or communication devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that proceedings be accurately recorded, the board chair may have to ask for order periodically should noise begin to interfere with our recording capabilities. I am pleased that you have taken the time this evening to join us. We are very proud of the school system and thank you for your interest in Bloomfield Public Schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. And might I add, Happy New Year to each and every one of you. This is 2020. Also, just to keep you informed, although my partner next to me, Mrs. Bolton, is basically healthy, she has no voice tonight. So she may be hitting me or maybe sending me notes. And so if you see a lot of activity between the two of us, that's what's going on. Item 4A, the consent agenda, approval of the minutes. Ms. Eastman.
I move that the Bloomfield Board of Education approve the minutes from the December 10th, 2019 regular board meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any edits, corrections to those minutes of December 10th? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is so ordered.
One abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry, one abstention. Yes, thank you. Keeping me honest, man. Recognitions. Carmen A. Ray students host charitable drives. Ms. McCann?
Good evening, Board Chair, Board members, Superintendent Thompson, and both our live and television viewing audience. I am happy to share with you on behalf of the Carmen Reyes Intermediate and Middle School community a series of charitable events that staff and students have engaged in to promote the acts of kindness. For the month of October, in support of breast cancer awareness, staff and students raised over $650, which was donated to the St. Francis Hospital Oncology Unit. In November and December, over 1,000 non-perishable food items were collected from the student body to benefit Food Share. And currently, the A-Race community is engaged in a winter wear drive in which coats, hats, scarves, and mittens are welcomed, and they are also collecting hygiene products to benefit Hartford's homeless population. So these charitable acts of kindness promote empathy and character development for our Bloomfield children. Hats off to our leaders, both Sarah Williams and Dr. Ellis.
congratulations to both and to all the numbers of students. Parents and community partnership with Our Farm.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here to do this little brief presentation. It's mostly going to be a pictorial presentation, and I'll run through it. We are in our 11th year. We've had 10 years of a partnership with Our Farm. And Winterberry was founded with that partnership in mind. Every student visits the farm 12 times a year. The lessons follow the agricultural calendar. Curriculum standards are embedded into these learning opportunities continually. We have a scientific inquiry theme for our magnet school, and to emphasize the inquiry and scientific method, students are exposed to the topic in advance, the topic lessons, and there's a video overview of the visit, so that then they are able to ask questions regarding their upcoming experience and then inquire about them on their visit and do research to answer their questions, personalizing their learning experience. I'm just going to let you view the topics. You can run down the list that we cover throughout the year. And how do we investigate? We use wonder walls. So the kids' questions are posted on the walls. This is one style with a little speech bubble. And oh, I'm not going to be able to read it. I think it's how do you make wheat from seeds? So that's one child's question. Then here's another style. And how do we make flour from grinding wheat is one of the answers that they found out when they went to the farm. So I'm just going to run through these pictures so you can see what happens at the farm. We emphasize the experiential learning that's set out in the lessons. The children explore and wonder and answer. We have intentional classroom connections and ongoing professional development in order to make those connections deeper and deeper. So you can see children preparing spinach that they grew, making applesauce. One is making garlic bread, and the other one is answering a question about the garlic bread, if the children like it. And this is a documentation panel about the creation of the garlic bread with student writing. And we have 3 spaces where we make connections to the farm. Our greenhouse, you can see the children in action there. And our courtyard is another one of our growing spaces that we wrap our curriculum into. And our outdoor learning environment now has 6 growing beds. And you can see in the middle slide that those are vegetables that children actually grew, and they're picking the carrots right there on either side of the vegetables. So thank you so much to everyone for your continued support for this partnership. Our farm is an important partner to us. They help us to deepen our connections to our curriculum through scientific inquiry. We have multiple learning spaces that make those connections across our standards. We have try days where the children try a fruit and a vegetable 1 time a month each, and we grow some of those ourselves just as a sample. And we have more intentional focus on inquiry and standards that are expanding all the time with this partnership. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions?
That was Winterberry School?
Yes.
Yeah.
Come visit.
Recognition of Bloomfield's 2020 Teacher of the Year. Dr. Thompson?
Good evening, members of the board, colleagues, parents, and our television viewing audience. This evening, I'm very excited to recognize Bloomfield Public Schools Teacher of the Year, Marcus Jennings. Mr. Jennings has been a social studies teacher at Common A. Race Middle School for the last 7 years. Although education may not have been his original pursuit following college, we're very grateful that he chose to become an educator. One of Marcus' many attributes is his excellent rapport with students. Miss Mary Kay Rendock was quoted saying, "Students listen to Mr. Jennings because they know he speaks from the heart, with integrity and honesty." Mr. Jennings was honored at the Teachers of the Year celebration hosted by the State Department of Education on December 4th, 2019. The ceremony held at the Bushnell provides educators an evening of recognition for the impact they have on the lives of young people. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Jennings, Teacher of the Year, for his contributions to students of Bloomfield. And Marcus, I do ask, first and foremost, if you would just come forward for a minute. I have a little token for you. And then I ask that you come and really address the board.
Good evening, members of the community, board members. I'm humbled and I'm honored at this recognition as well as the token. It is my privilege to engage the children of Bloomfield schools on a daily basis. They make my role in our community very easy. They're receptive to what we offer. They are qualified and able, and they're not often reluctant, to try new things, even though they're children, and that's what children are, reluctant. But we found at Aries some formulas to encourage that along. And with the help of Dr. Thompson, Dr. Ellis, other members of the board, I see a parent here whose child I actually have in my homeroom, and the community at large, and mostly the students. I'd like to thank you all for welcoming me into your community and allowing me to use the skills that I've been taught to teach others. And hopefully this can continue with the cooperation and felicity that it has continued with over the past 7 years. I'm grateful, I'm appreciative, and I thank you.
You'll always be Jamie's favorite. Been at Carmen Aries now for 5 to 6 years. Because he saved my granddaughter. Ain't he great? Now, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present our student reps from Global Experience Magnet School, Victoria Phillips, who is a 12th grader, and a nervous LaShawna Campbell, who's a 10th grader, but I know she's going to do a great job because she's smiling, and everybody's going to smile right back at her.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shauna Campbell, and I go to Global Experience Magnet School. I have been a student here for 5 years, and I really love the experience here. And today, me and my partner, Victoria, are going to be speaking about the activities and experiences here. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the parent-teacher conferences. So December 4th and 5th, more than 270 conferences were held for more than 60 students represented. Okay, so here I'm going to be talking about exhibitions. So the The exhibitions are December 4th, 5th, and 6th. Students showcase their learning during the first semester of the year. 3 evidence areas: knowing, caring, doing, college, and career research. So for knowing, caring, doing, all of the students talk about what knowing, caring, doing means to them. And for college and career research, for college, we talk about what college we want to go to into the future. And for career research, we pick a topic that we are really interested in, and we talk about it and how can we fix the issues and the problems.
During the last week before break, we held a Spirit Week, and it was organized by the GEM students. And the school had a week of activities where students could dress up and show their spirit. I think there are some pictures. It was a fundraiser for the prom, and it was also for positive school climate. Yeah, some pictures here. This day was Pajama Day, which I think was that was the day that the most amount of students participated, it was a really good day. That Spirit Week did really well. For our mentoring program, high school students work on academic and/or social goals with their mentees, and mentors and mentees meet together on a weekly basis, and more than 67 mentoring meetings have taken place within the last 2 months. I have my own mentee, and today I actually went into her classroom and I sat next to her because I wanted to be able to help her with anything she was struggling in her math class, and I was able to see how she acts in her situation. So that's something that we will be able to have a conversation on later in the week. And I like being able to have that connection with the younger students because she's a 6th grader. And when I first met her, she was pretty nervous because, as a lot of the underclassmen are, they see a senior, they just think we're old, and they are pretty, they're pretty afraid of us, but I was in that position too, so I like that I have someone who I can help at this age. College courses. Last semester, or we're still in the semester, but 6 GEM students successfully completed college courses in the fall, and during the next semester, 11 students will be taking courses. I like the courses I like the fact that we're able to do these college courses because I've been taking them since 11th grade, and they really helped me. And last semester, I took a class at University of Hartford with the partnership at school. I took a college chemistry class, and that was one of the hardest classes I've ever taken before, but I really like that it gave me that experience, so I hope that there's a lot more 11th graders who are interested in taking the classes. Senior Capstone. This is a project that shows a senior skill set in researching a global topic. This is a 25 to 30 page paper that is required for us to graduate, that we work on from pretty much October all the way up until May during school. And it's for this year, our teacher broke it up into sections, so we had chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that it's not like something where you say, oh, you need to write 25 pages and then nobody does it until the end of the year. But it's really something that requires a lot of work and writing and research, but I have a feeling that it's going to be all in good use for college. And some sample topics include how are women marginalized in Chinese society, violence against women in South Africa, lasting effects of apartheid in South Africa, is there a solution for the Israeli-Palestine conflict, and a silence press in the Middle East. My topic is educational inequalities in South Africa with a concentration on racism and discrimination. Some other projects that have been upcoming at GEMS, we have a shoe drive for our South Africa trip, which my partner will mention later, but that will be upcoming. And with that, we raise shoes to bring to the village when we travel to South Africa. There's also a winter apparel drive that we have running through NHS, as well as a midterm motivation bulletin board that we'll be doing. It will have some study tips for the students and a section where you can write words of encouragement for your classmates, just to show some positive school climate for the upcoming stressful time.
So here I'm going to be talking about the GEMS experiences. So as you guys can see in the first picture with all the kids, they're in Washington, D.C., and this was last year. I'm going to be talking about the performance task later, but this is an experience in South Africa, February, which is the following February that's coming up this year. 10th grade, any college experience, which is April this following year. 11th grade, service experience, which is May the following year. And middle school, New York City experience, which is the following May. So about the performance task, when we go into the trips, they give us a project to do, and we basically explain what did we learn and what did we see throughout our experience on the trip, and we like put it in as a grade, and they see how our experience was at the trip, basically. This is our presentation on the Global Experience Learning School. Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions?
Any questions?
I'd like to challenge the young student put out to their, about the college courses. That's real good. That's real good.
Mrs. Bolton had a question. Are the mentors distributed over all schools, or is it just at GEMS?
Oh, it's just at GEMS. We have like one chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you go from 5th grade or 6th grade?
Sixth grade. Oh, the shoe drive? So we will be traveling to South Africa on February 18th to the 28th. And during our stay there, we'll be going to the Makaleke village. And a lot of the kids there don't have shoes, or they don't have shoes that actually fit them. So we have a shoe drive that's been going on since the beginning of this year. And we mostly collect sneakers and like durable flip-flops so that they will actually be able to wear. And I'm also asking any of my relatives and my mom to bring it to work, because I am going to be on the trip, and I want to have. In past years, they've raised so many shoes, so I'm hoping that we can live up to that.
Ms. Davis?
So on Pajama Day, you said that it was the biggest participation. Do you guys wear uniforms?
Yes.
Regular? Oh,
Yes.
that's why. I was wondering why it was such a big success, Pajama Day.
I've been at GEMS since 2013. I don't remember the last time we actually had a Pajama Day, so I feel like that was really the reason why everybody was really excited about that day.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Public PTO comment? I have one sign up for public comment, Mr. Kenneth McClary. Would you please give us your name, your address, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. Good evening, Superintendent Thompson, Chairman Harrison, and members of the Bloomfield Board of Education, excuse me, and the community. I am Kenneth McClary. I am a former town council member here in the town of Bloomfield. I'm here to wish you all a happy new year and to comment on your budget document. The budget is usually a statement of policy direction. I have 2 young children in the Bloomfield Public Schools, Micaiah Rush, who's in 5th grade at Common Race Intermediate School, Mackenzie McClary, who attended Wintonbury and is down at Laurel Elementary in kindergarten. I'm here to discuss the lack of resource in the budget documents for Common Race Intermediate School. Currently, right now, there is no librarian in the school, and so the kids do not have the access to be able to check out books and do research projects. Just last week, as they came back from the winter break, we received an email stating that the kids have research projects that are coming up, and that we should take our children to the local public library, which is not an issue for me because I have the resource to be able to do so. But there's other children in the school who do not have the adequate resources. The teacher's email also stated, if you can't get to the public library, that you should just go online to the internet. However, If you do research in the town of Bloomfield, the lack of internet and broadband and Wi-Fi in certain homes, as we know, we have a high population of foster children here, and a lot of their foster parents don't have the adequate resources to purchase Wi-Fi and internet. And so I would hope, I know you're a month away from the budget developing the budget. I have promised myself that I will not comment on local issues, and I will allow the town council and the Board of Ed to move in a direction. But this is to the point where it's affecting our children. They are not able to compete on a global scale. I'm okay, I have a master's degree, I'm going to be okay. It's about the future of our children. And so anything that I can do to help you all articulate to the town council the importance of investing and giving whatever resources you need into the classroom will be great. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. McCleary. And for the record, we don't comment on public comment, but you should know that Dr. Thompson takes lots of notes, and he will respond directly back to Mr. McCleary at the appropriate time. Okay?
So I apologize, I didn't sign up for public comment. I didn't know I needed to, if I could still speak.
Of course. Give us your name, your address.
Okay, so my name is Deborah Murray, and I live at 98 Wadhams Road. And I have 2 children in the district who are in 5th and 7th grade, and they started all the way back at Wittenberry School. Way back in 2010, they went to our farm, so that was a wonderful presentation. It brought me back. And I have had the pleasure of working with all of the wonderful principals that are sitting before us and had wonderful experiences with all of them. My concern is with our middle schools, and they're very similar to concerns of the speaker before me. My concerns are with the current state of the budget and the funding that is going to our schools that is inadequate to meet the needs of our students, particularly my students, but overall for all of our Bloomfield students. I do not feel that the cuts that have been made this year and the changing of teachers that have been done to the middle school, particularly to Carmen Arrace Middle School, bringing down high school teachers to teach middle school teachers without any experience in the middle school, teaching curriculum they have never taught before, and making changes to teams and forcing teachers to have higher loads of children is not meeting the needs of our students. And my students in particular are feeling that, and my students are not performing at a high level where they are getting their needs met every single day in the school system of Bloomfield schools. I am highly disappointed in what is going on and what is happening to my children's education. I have expressed this to the superintendent, I have expressed this to the principals, I have expressed this to the assistant superintendent. I feel like I get nowhere, and I don't feel like anybody is listening to the citizens here in Bloomfield. It is a real disheartening situation that is going on, and I really think something needs to be done this year to support our students. The ginormous class of 7th grade that my daughter is a part of has zero support to support the students' needs. There is one counselor supporting students, and the needs of our students do not get met by one person serving over 150 students. That is not fair to our educators. That is not fair to the staff in Bloomfield schools, and I wish for the Board of Education and the superintendent to address the issues that need to be addressed in our town and take the citizens, the parents, and the students seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the,
I have a quick comment, sorry. My name's Erica Coleman. Good evening, everyone.
is there
to the
anybody
board.
else that has a desire to make a comment? I'm going to ask you to please come forward and stand at the ready, because this will be the last speaker. I need your name and your address, and you have 2 minutes.
Yep. My name's Erica Coleman. My address is 77 Wittenberry Avenue, in Bloomfield, of course. It'll be quick. really just piggybacking off of what they said. So I am an alumni of Bloomfield Public Schools. I hold Bloomfield very near and dear to my heart. I go to bat for them all the time. When anybody questions, how do I do it? How do you let your child go to Bloomfield? Like, I am the biggest walking commercial from Bloomfield on every level. So my concerns are with the lack of resources as well. I have a child who's in the school system, and the lack of books, calculators, his math class. In high school, the teacher said to me, there's only 14 calculators, and there's 20-something students. So that's why everybody can't get a calculator. I bought my son a calculator, so he's fine, but then I do have concerns for other students where maybe their parents, aren't aware, and in their mind, oh, maybe I just wasn't good in math, so my child isn't good in math either. But because of these lack of resources, or maybe they just don't know that the students need these type of things, I think it's important that we take a look at that. Also Chromebooks, other school districts, they get a Chromebook from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. Manchester, Windsor, why can't we be in line with that, with the students having access to having a Chromebook that would help them complete their homework at home if they don't have a computer or a laptop, as well as at school. So I want you guys to take that into consideration and adding that. And again, the classroom sizes, like they mentioned, some of the teachers seem really overwhelmed with 27 kids in the class. So definitely either look at hiring more educators is not fair to the students because it's hard for them to ask questions and get them answered because there's so much going on with 20-something kids in the class.
You will see 1210 professional staff salaries currently showing a deficit of approximately $18,000. At this time, only half of the projected revenues from the special ed out-of-district placement tuition has been posted. The remaining 50% will be posted and is anticipated to cover that particular deficit. The other major account showing a deficit is the tuition account at the bottom of page 4 of the 6-page report. Line 5600 public and line 5690 magnet continue to both show deficits. The revenue from the excess cost grant, once we receive it, hopefully will cover some of these deficits. At this time, I want to remind the board that back in September, we gave a presentation, a report, status report on special education to the members of the board. And since that time, at that time, the number of children receiving special education services was approximately 17%, which was over the state average. The district is currently serving 18.5%, so there's been a growth in that area of children requiring IDEA services. Among this increase is a significant change in the severity of the needs of children and children with significant medically complex conditions, multiple disabilities, autism, which require considerable services. This year alone, Bloomfield registered over 62 new students with IEP, Individualized Education Plan, service requirements. Bloomfield inherited these IEPs for numerous students that had mandates for additional support and services beyond what we had budgeted originally in the form of teacher services and particularly in the form of instructional aid assistance. This has resulted in Bloomfield's struggle to keep up with mandated services in all areas in order to stay in legal compliance with each student IEP. So at this particular point, just like we did last year, reporting out to you relative to the needs of the district, the needs of the children that require special education services, and the impact it's having on the current budget. We will continue to, as you know, we've been on a budget freeze since mid-August, before school started. We'll continue to be on a budget freeze, and the budget freeze impacts all areas but the instructional program and safety and health issues are concerns of the district. That completes my report.
That's the financial report. Any questions? Ms. Eastman?
You indicated on page 4 that one of the deficits would hopefully be fulfilled by some money coming in. You said hopefully. So what if it's not? What's the point?
Well, yes, very good point. That's the excess cost grant that's we're talking in particular. That comes in two payments, typically in a given year. The first payment, which we will receive in approximately a month or two, will be 75% of the grant. The balance will be paid towards the end of the school year. And the balance on this excess cost grant, which is supposed to be fully funded, really depends on how much the state has appropriated for the grant statewide. And what they do is they proportion the money out to the districts, and the hope is that there's sufficient money in the state budget to cover the requirements and the requests of the various school districts in the state.
And if it's not?
If it's not there, well, we're trying to manage the budget that we received in July as best we can, and we may have to go into a further freeze on some other accounts that we don't want to touch, but at this particular point, we're holding out for two particular grants, the excess cost grant in particular, and then the out-of-district revenue sources that we receive from other districts. So we're looking for revenue sources to impact the deficits in this budget, and those are two in particular.
Mr. Ike?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Thompson, can we please remind the public, the board meets last Tuesday. We have our committee meetings of each month, and we have robust financial analysis at those meetings. And all the concerns we've heard tonight from the parents and just from the citizens, I'm sure this month we're going to have a very, very robust meeting. We'll be in depth, cover all these financial issues, not only the academics, but clearly the financial issues are forefront to this board.
Other comments? Mr. Moore?
Getting back to Ms. Eastman, if it's not, you said we're gonna look elsewhere. So
Yes, we're gonna look elsewhere.
Are you saying that we're gonna rob Peter to pay Paul? I mean, how are we doing this? Is my question. Because we're gonna look elsewhere, but elsewhere where?
Well, last year, as you may recall, we were looking at a similar situation, and we met with the Finance Committee of the Town Council on several occasions to let them know exactly where we are with the budget. And as you may recall, last year, they provided an additional appropriation to the school district in the area of $970,000. If need be, we're going to go down that path again.
You know, I was going to withhold my comments until board comment time, but I can't do that because you asked some valid questions, but you were here for the budget stuff last spring, okay? So you know what we went through, okay? And there's also the fact that we cannot finish in the red by law. Okay, so, you know, in answer to Ms. Eastman's question, answer to your question, we are doing our best. We are borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. We're doing the best we can on a very ticklish situation. Both parents who came up here, all three parents who came up here with valid concerns. And I applaud former council member McClary, because he didn't say what he could have said. Reason why we are in this situation now. We have been in conversation with the new town manager and the mayor, and we are in anticipation of stuff coming up, you know, not being able to meet all of our expenses, so, you know.
Can I respond to you?
I'm not, yeah, go right ahead.
No. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
okay.
But I guess what's getting me is, although I understand, you know, we have to look at the council who does all this stuff, and we know where we stand. But at the same time, we as board members, you know, we are elected officials, and I gotta be able to explain when I go out and I talk to people, whatever else and stuff, and they say to me, well, what's going on, whatever. I mean, I tell them to come to the meetings and everything else. But when they elect us to represent their interests.
Mhm. Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, I'm not saying that we don't get me wrong. I know we do the best that we can, but at the same time, in my opinion, I don't think the public understands that. What I'm trying to do is get the public to understand this.
Yeah, very, very well said, very well said. Ms.
And
Davis?
I'd just like to respond to what Mr. Moore just said and to our position here around the Board of Education. And when we sit before these meetings, I think the most important thing when we're bringing questions about the budget, because that is the biggest issue that impacts our district overall, and it impacts the parents' comments, it impacts what we do fiscally, that when we sit around the board and we ask these questions, and to Ms. Eastman's point, this is our opportunity for the viewing public to hear and our concerns and know that regardless to the fact that we do have these robust meetings in subcommittee that are not open to the public, that the public is not being made aware of, we do get a lot of work done in those subcommittees. But this is an opportunity that if we have a question that the viewing public can't see, we should have an opportunity or an obligation to just share some of those concerns publicly without it being a situation where we know what the situation is, we know the town council, we know the budget. We're not trying to put anyone on blast. We're just trying to get transparency so that people who are listening tonight or people who are in the audience tonight have an opportunity to share that we around the board don't just sit here. We have an obligation to question things that are not happening in our favor for our children in this district. We have an obligation to make that transparent.
And just for the record, our subcommittee or our committee meetings are not televised.
That's what I mean.
But they are open to the public. Anybody can walk in and be a witness to the
That information is
meetings.
always posted if people are interested, and Kristen
Yeah.
does make sure that that is on the website. If people are interested and they can come and sit in the audience, they don't have an opportunity to vote because they don't sit on the committee, but they could actually hear what's going on. And I'd just like to add one thing that I just want clarity on, if it's okay?
Sure.
On this budget, I just provide page 5 or 6. And it just says, you know, like we have here, facility material, then we have heat, we have electricity, we have water services, then we have building improvement. Then the last number 11 says operation and maintenance of building. None of that stuff falls under,
No, that is a major account. That one you're pointing out, number 11,
yeah,
is the major account.
all of that stuff income,
is-
okay.
yes.
That's what I wanted to be clear. All right, thank you. That's my only question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just want to make a follow-up comment to what I said. So you do have to understand I am also a parent, so the questions that I'm asking are coming as a board member and a parent, and as well as, you know, giving information to our audience. So I just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Just everybody in town is concerned. There's no subgroup or because I don't have any kids, but I am as concerned as anybody about the financial state of the Bloomfield schools. I think all citizens are. I believe all citizens are. So everyone in town is very concerned about the state of the finances for the school district, period. It's when I go around, all I'm hearing from people is about the finances of what's going on in the schools. There's left and right. People are saying, what's going on? They said there's horror stories, and I say, listen, we're at the board, we meet, we have our committee meetings, and that's where really a lot of the nitty-gritty goes on. We do come here and ask the hard questions, no doubt about it. But clearly, finances is number one on all the minds of the citizens in this town. The finances of the board, the state of the schools.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Guzman. Under the item of old business, we do have the approval of the revision to the 2019-2020 academic calendar. Ms. Eastman?
I move that the Bloomfield Board of Education approve the revised 2019-2020 academic calendar as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Are there any questions on this?
Yes.
Mr. Ike?
Mr. Chairman, I just as the register of voters, I just want to go through so the public knows. So April 28th, 2020 is a presidential preference primary. And we work with Dr. Thompson and the schools. That's a professional development day, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. As we go, May we're fine, June we're fine, July we're fine. Now August, there's a potential.
No,
for,
we're not. This is 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
This is 19 and 20.
Oh,
So
19, okay,
that'll be the next item. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? It is so ordered. Mr. Ike, you'll bring that up with the next, when I bring the next one up. But we're going to go to the student academic performance update first. Dr. Silver.
All right, good evening, Board Chair Harris, Mr. Harris, board members, Dr. Thompson, our community members who braved the rain tonight to be here, and those in their homes tuning in. This evening, our principals will share how Bloomfield Schools teachers are engaging in impactful, standards-based work regarding student success and challenges. They will speak to our standards-aligned curriculum and rigorous classroom instruction. Specifically, our school principals are here tonight to share the progress taking place in our schools. So our goal this evening is to ensure that we have a shared understanding between our district leadership and our school board and community. Our purpose, we will review student success with current standards, highlighting strengths as well as current and future instructional focus areas. So our principals, thank you very much for being here tonight, will come up and speak to the work that they're doing in their schools. And our payoff is that our Board of Education and our community will have a greater awareness of the targeted instruction taking place. Our work lies in building student skills with Common Core standards, and our curriculum, our common formative assessments, our benchmark assessments, and our state assessments all measure those rigorous standards. Just to revisit our student population for 1920, this is based on October 1st. Enrollment in our school district, we have some characteristics here. Race, students with disabilities, English learners, and free reduced price meals. Some of these numbers are similar, but we do have more English learners this year. We do have a higher number and percentage of students with disabilities, as well as a slight increase in the number of students who qualify for free or reduced price meals. So our process tonight is that each principal will come up here and review the state and national standards that our students have mastered, as well as those standards that we are currently focused on. Our work requires curriculum and instruction that are tightly aligned to those rigorous expectations. There are a variety of tools we use to formatively assess student learning aligned to the standards across all grades. Our principals will describe the standards their students currently have successfully mastered, as well as those that we're focused on in each setting. If you could please save your questions until each principal has had an opportunity to share their work. And I would like to invite Ms. Lisa Eels up to present about Wintonberry Magnet School.
Good evening again. The strength areas for Wintonberry Early Childhood Magnet School for English language arts are that the students, both 3 and 4-year-olds, apply phonics concepts, knowledge of word structure. And so for the 3s, they are approaching the use of letter sound associations, things like B for B, and print concepts, looking at the front and back of the book and how text moves across a page. The 4-year-olds aren't just approaching the use, they are actually using letter sound associations that we can see in their writing, and some can start to decipher some words that are familiar to them. For mathematics, the strength area, we have 2, measures time and money, so that's not really counting out money or looking at a clock at this point. But for the 3s, they know the usual sequence of daily events, and for 4s, they relate time to daily routines and a schedule, and they know that a clock or a watch tells time. They also can represent and analyze data, so they know a few ordinal numbers like first or second, and they approach the reading of simple graphs, comparing first, third, and things like that. So they can compare more sunny days than rainy days, and they can compare objects in a line or people in a line. The areas that we're working for instruction are in English language arts, noticing and discriminating rhyme, and this may seem repetitive to you from year after year because this is a difficult area every year. Children, it's expected that they will have difficulty with this, and then by the end of the year, we are working hard to make sure that they do in preparation for their next years in school. They are working to fill in the missing rhyming word, generating rhyming words spontaneously, so saying cup and pup spontaneously when asked, deciding whether 2 words rhyme, so cup or pup versus cup or bear. In mathematics, we are working on understanding spatial relationships. So that would be knowing simple concepts related to proximity, placing objects beside, between, or next to, and using and responding for 4s to positional words for location, direction, and distance, so far away, things like that. And also, we are working on measuring objects, so comparing and ordering objects based on size, length, weight, area, and volume, and using multiples of the same unit to measure, so such as a paper clip, using numbers to compare, is it 3 or a 5, 3 or 5, and knows the purpose of measuring tools like a scale or a ruler. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Jennifer Dwyer from Laurel Elementary School.
Thank you, Ms. Seals, and good evening. So in Laurel, when we're looking at our strength areas, we're looking at areas that are consistent from our kindergarten population to our second grade population. In ELA, we're working on foundational comprehension skills, the students' ability to retell stories, including key details, to ask and answer questions, and to demonstrate understanding of the text. In mathematics, we're looking at their foundational number sense, starting primarily with writing the numerals 0 to 20, and then moving into second grade where they really understand that 3 digits for a number represent the hundreds, tens, and ones. As you can see in the little anchor chart that's presented, it's no longer just saying the number 234, but truly understanding there's a word form, a number form, an expanded form where they're breaking it apart into hundreds, tens, and ones, and then being able to understand what each of those digits truly mean. The 3 in the tens place doesn't just mean 3, it means 3 tens, which equals 30. It's a difficult concept for the students, and they're doing very well with that right now. We continue to build on those foundational skills, so our instructional area. When we're looking at our English language arts, we're taking the students and their comprehension is strong at their individual independent levels. However, we're really looking to build their fluency. So they're looking at decoding, word attack skills, word structure, and taking that decoding to increase their fluency, which would then increase their comprehension level at their grade level. So we're looking at their comprehension instructionally at their level and taking that level and build it up to what the grade level expectation is. In mathematics, we're taking that basic number sense, we're applying it to operations, so understanding the properties of different operations, what is subtraction, what is addition, and then to fluently add and subtract within 100 using strategies based on place value. So no longer is it 2 plus 9 in the ones, 1, bring up the 1, and then you continue on. Basic algorithms are gone. We teach that. We want them to be fluent, but truly understanding what the numbers are so that they can manipulate it, understand it, and work out more complex problems. I'd like to call up Mr. Paul Guzzo for Metacomment.
Good evening, everyone. At Metacomment, strength areas that we have, one of the strength areas that we have in English language arts are our kids are able to ask and answer questions to demonstrate understanding of a story. So knowing the main idea and the supporting details, key details of a story. In numeracy, math, one of our strength areas is geometric measurements, and students can solve real-world math problems involving perimeters and polygons. We go on to our areas of instruction, things that we're working on. Word recognition. Students to determine and clarify the meaning of unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases. And I have a little example here. Knowing, distinguishing the different shades and meanings of related words that describes the state of mind or degrees. Like knew, believed, suspected, heard, wondered. They all kind of mean the same thing, but in a little different way. So having our students understand the different meanings of types of words like that. And in numeracy, one of the areas we're working on is problem solving, using multiplication and division to solve word problems. So an example I have is something like Dr. Silver has a bag of baby carrots and wants to give each board member an equal number. If there are 97 mini carrots in the bag, how many carrots will each member get? So there might be different meanings. So if we have a full board, there'll be so many members, and if someone's absent, the kids are going to have to figure that out. I would like to call up Sarah Williams, the principal over at Carmen A. Race Intermediate School.
I brought some fun paper for you guys to look at. My slides were not getting the images on them, so I wanted to make sure you had some examples in front of you as well. The intermediate school is working hard in language arts. Our standards scaffold throughout the year and build on each other, whereas in mathematics, sometimes they hit a skill and then it's done for a while and they'll come back much, much later for it. So you'll see that represented here. In the area of language arts, our students are quoting accurately from a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and then drawing inferences from the text. So you'll see in one of the examples, the students are having different ways of saying what the text says and then having to come up with how they know that from what is in the actual text. So I think one of the examples in front of you, it says, and they were elated to have found the dog. What does elated mean? Oh, I think that they're happy because it says elated, so that they understand the synonym there. They're also writing a lot. This is something that is really fantastic for our students. The volume that they're writing has increased immensely. So in the explanatory or informational section of writing for our children, it's no longer a paragraph, they're writing pages. And not only are they writing pages, but they're actually having a lot of the information, the central ideas and the topics from what they're reading and adding it to their explanatory essays. You'll see later on, we're working on making sure it's concise and clear. But as far as the amount and the volume, they're doing more exceptional work there. In mathematics, students are writing and evaluating numerical expressions involving whole number exponents. And you're gonna notice that that's a 6th grade standard, and the 5th grade standard they're doing quite well with as well in the idea of exponents. That one is explaining patterns in the numbers of zeros of the product when multiplying a number by the powers of 10. So they understand that 2 to the second power would be, 10 to the second power is 10 2 times, so 100. areas that we are working to improve. In language arts, determining the central idea of a text and how it is conveyed through a particular detail and providing the summary. So this is the part that we're talking about, the concise and clarity is that summary piece. They really need to break down, finding that central idea of the story, but being able to do that concisely within their summary. And we are also working with interpreting figurative language, including similes, metaphors, and context. And Ms. Dwyer brought to the attention grade level appropriate material. So students are able to do that at their independent level. We need to make sure that all of them are either able to do that at their grade level and or above. In mathematics, students are working hard at making a line plot to display a data set. So I gave you an example on there as well. That one could be that there are 6 beakers and they all have different amounts of a liquid inside, and they need to figure out if they all had an equal amount, what would that be in each of them. So they're going from bar graphs and line graphs to plot graphs, and this is a next level up. And the last one, which is on the back page, this is a real-world application of understanding how to break down different shapes and figures, understanding the angles to solve for area as well. So if we were recarpeting this room, trying to look at the shape over here and noticing how many angles there are, can we break this up into any triangles or rectangles to find the area? Thank you very much, and I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Trevor Ellis.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, Superintendent, Board, viewing audience. A pleasure of basically giving us some information around our strengths at Carmen A. Race Middle School. And those include standards that are mastered. One in particular is citing several pieces of evidence, textual evidence, to support analysis or an inference. Another area that we are doing well in is basically determining the meaning of words and phrases, including figurative and connotative and technical meanings. In the area of mathematics, our standards mastered include applying and extending previous understandings of addition and subtraction to add and subtract rational numbers, including represent addition and subtraction on a horizontal or vertical number line diagram. And as you can see, you have a picture up there, but it's kind of small, but basically we'll have to write an equation, a subtraction equation that could be used to find D, the distance between the units on that number line. Another area that we are currently strong in is using rational approximations of irrational numbers to compare the size of irrational numbers, locate them approximately on a number line diagram, and estimate the value of expressions. For example, what is the value of the square root of 51? To the nearest whole number would be 7, just so we understand. The current areas that we are, that's 7. The current areas instructional areas that we are focusing on going forward in ELA include analyzing the structure of an author's use to organize a text, including how major sections contribute to the whole in the development of an idea or ideas. Another area that we're working on in the middle school includes analyzing how 2 or more authors writing about the same topic shape their presentations of key information by emphasizing different evidence or advancing different interpretations of the facts. In the area of mathematics, we are focusing on currently using variables to represent quantities in real world or mathematical problems and construct simple equations and inequalities to solve problems by reasoning about the quantities. For example, 4 people are having dinner at a restaurant. They pay equal portions of the cost and the tip, and we find out what that is, basically, and create an equation so the kids can answer that real-life question. Another area is graph proportional relationship, interpreting the unit rate as the slope of the graph. Compare 2 different proportional relationships represented in different ways. An example is compare a distance-time graph to a distance-time equation to determine which of the two moving objects has greater speed. So that are our current areas, strengths and weaknesses. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Principal Bernardi.
Good evening. As the slide shows there, I'm going to be talking about grades 6, 7, 8, and grade 11, which are the 4 tested grades at GEMS. An important task that our middle school students have mastered is being able to read a text, and then based on that text, establish claims. After making the claim, it's important that our students can then support their claim with evidence from the text. And an example of that might be if they read an article on global climate change, that they can then go into the text and get very specific and make a claim something like, essentially, there are several gases in Earth's atmosphere that scientists believe are having an effect, a warming effect on the Earth. So being able to make that claim based in evidence. Our 11th graders have mastered being able to analyze text, so essentially being able to go into the text and then take that text apart to determine what makes it effective, or on the other hand, what makes it ineffective. Next slide, please. Turning to middle school math, our 6th and 7th graders have worked hard to master number system standards. Thinking about number line logic, this is essentially doing operations with both positive and negative numbers. They've also started operations with fractions. Our 8th graders have worked hard to master equations and expressions, particularly towards solving linear expressions. And as Dr. Ellis pointed out, very similar, this is something that we can graph very easily, and it could be change over time. It could be how income increases or decreases over time, but being able to use equations to do that. Finally, our 8th graders have done well with their spatial thinking, and they've started to do some initial work with triangles. Next slide, please. Our 11th graders have mastered standards related to reasoning with equations and inequalities. And this is important because as they do that, there's a lot of equations that they have to focus on a specific variable. For example, if they were talking about the circumference of a circle, how are pi, or how is the radius, how is that related to the circumference? Or if they were going to go into a science context, how is current related to voltage or resistance? And being able to manipulate those variables that they would find in a specific equation. Next slide, please. Turning now to standards that our students will be working on in the coming months. Grades 6 and 7, they're going to do a little bit what our high schoolers have done, which is essentially to get into the structure of the text to determine what makes it either effective or ineffective. Grade 8 will be evaluating claims. Specifically, is the claim reasonable? Is the evidence relevant? And also, is the evidence sufficient? So get very specific as they're reading these texts. And then grade 11 will be examining informational texts. And essentially, do they have effective use of rhetoric? So are they using things like analogies, hyperbole, metaphors? Are they using those effectively? Next slide, please. Our areas of work for math in the coming months, grades 6 and 7 will continue some of their number system work, but they're going to get a little bit more challenging here where they talk about things like greatest common factor, which is useful in doing things like reducing fractions, lots of fractions in our world. Also working with least common multiples, which is effective. That's a skill that they're going to need when they deal with fractions, especially when the denominators aren't equal. So this is building up our skills there. Grade 8 is going to do a little bit more to expand their spatial thinking as they continue to work with manipulations of triangles, as it says up there, talking about rotations, reflections, translations. And then finally, grade 11 is going to start work with quadratic equations. That's particularly useful in dealing with like projectile motion, so describing the motion of a ball that's thrown through the air. At this time, I'd like to introduce the principal of Bloomfield High School, Mr. Dan Maletti.
Thank you, Board Chair, Board members, Superintendent. I will be reporting to you Bloomfield High School's strength areas and areas of instructional focus. In ELA, 2 of our strength areas were students determining the meaning of words in context, using context clues and close reading, including synonyms, antonyms, compare and contrast. Another one was students were able to interpret the figures of speech around euphemism, oxymorons, paradox, hyperboles, to interpret what their role was in the text. For mathematics, students' strength they showed was being able to summarize data for 2 categories. In other words, taking a survey between the males and females in the school, interpreting and analyzing the data and making conclusions. And then student strength that students demonstrated were they able to evaluate reports based on data reading, analyzing box plots, scatter plots, bar graphs, things of that nature. Some instructional areas in focus that, in addition to what we're currently working on, is where students will be integrating quantitative and technical analysis, charts, research data. This is around the social studies aspect of the SAT and what we're doing in our social studies classrooms. For instance, reading trends in population from the census report or primary sources. Another area we're continuing to focus on is citing textual evidence in science and technology, scientific medical journals, pulling information, being able to decipher what the meaning, what the role that it's playing in what the student is reading is something that we've been working on specifically in science classes. For math, students creating equations with 2 or more variables, basically looking at being able to write an equation and being able to graph that equation using the y equals mx plus b, determining the slope, things of that nature. And then finally, using statistics to shape data around mean, median, range, and being able to, with 2 or more different data sets. These are areas that we identify as instructional focuses because these are areas that we can cover across all content areas so that students are hearing the same thing from class to class and working on the same type of skills from class to class, whether it be PE, health, culinary, business, science, social studies. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call back up Dr. Bethany Silva. Thank you.
Okay. We have, just to bring our attention back, very ambitious targets this year. Literacy, we have a target of 70% of students in grades 3 to 8 will meet or exceed grade level standards as measured by the Spring 2020 Smarter Balanced. And we have the same target for mathematics, that 70% of our students will meet or exceed the standard. To get us there, in addition to and in support of the work that our principals just described, we have deployed central office, our team, to work directly with school leaders. So we each have a school that we're responsible for, and we are present in that school, providing additional support. We have academic review in grades 2 through 8, where we engage in a close examination of actual authentic student work aligned to standards. We also have a data teaming fidelity, where we have instructional data teams, school-wide data teams, and a district data team, and these teams get together to review student work, our data, and to craft action plans in response to that data. And we also have additional personalized professional development that we are providing with our staff. That concludes our update at this time, and we welcome your questions.
Any questions?
Probably more just a comment.
Go ahead.
I know in the first semester we had that committee meeting where all the principals were here, where they gave an analysis of the results of the Smarter Balance. And this is good to see. So we'll see what happens in September. Because this should bear fruit in September, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'll see you then.
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
Other comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Williams, I'm so happy to see that the students are writing more. I think it's really important to have that connection to whatever stories they're coming up with or whatever information they're learning. It's good to get that out on paper and get them into the practice and habit of writing. I know they don't like it a lot, but I think it's a great life skill to have.
Other comments?
Yes, ambiguous targets. You're saying literacy is 70%. What is the normal percentage? If we're looking for a literacy of 70% of students will meet or exceed grade level, and that's an ambiguous target, what has been the normal target or the level that we've reached?
Okay, So we have set ambitious targets.
Ambitious, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So of 70% for this year. What we've done in the past is we had an overall district target of 80%, and we broke that target, the distance between where we were and that 80%, into 3 equal intervals, and with the expectation that we would close at least a third of the gap each year. This year, we have a much more ambitious target of 70% of our students. So we're not dividing that gap between where students are and where we want them to be by 3 equal intervals. We are going the full bore to achieve that target of 70%. In the past, each grade level has a different proportion, different percent of students meeting standard. I don't off the top of my head have a list of that, but it is not 70%. So we are targeting 70% this year, and it is an ambitious target for us. It is a steep target for us.
I can tell you what that number is.
Okay.
Language arts for grades 3 through 8, it's around 43, 44%.
To be ambitious, I was wondering where we were.
Right.
To get
This is
to a
really
target of
ambitious,
7%
right.
ambitious. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Guzman, 2020, 2021
Yes, in your folders.
calendar.
In your folders, you have a proposed calendar for the next school year. The starting date is as we projected it to be as the last Wednesday of August, and going through June 8th. Those are 180 school days, which is what we have. In the calendar, you'll also see 5 professional development days for staff, which is contractually required. We checked with CREC to see what CREC is the Regional Education Service Center for the Hartford area, to see when their starting date was, and it coincides with the 26th of August as ours. Also, the April vacation that you see there from April 12th to the 16th also coincides with the correct recommended calendar for 2021. The 180 days, again, required by law, and administration recommends adoption of this proposed calendar.
Let me add something too, just for clarification, that we're charged by the state to align our calendar with CREC. So we don't have much latitude or flexibility any longer like we had in the past. So this calendar is aligned pretty much with CREC.
That's all the school districts in the CREC district.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
it's 28, 29 school districts, yeah. Ms. Eastman,
I move that the Bloomfield Board of Education approve the 2020 through 2021 academic calendar as presented.
Second.
it's been properly moved and second. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to go through the election calendar real quick. July, we're fine. I see that our summer academy is from July 6th to the 24th. August 11th is the date for any potential either Republican or Democratic primary for the State House, any of the seats in the State House, and that would be August 11th. The only conflict wouldn't be with the schools. I think the Leisure Services uses Carmen A. Race for their summer program. I think they use the cafeteria or something. That's the only other if there is a primary on that date. September is fine, October is fine, and then the big election, the presidential election, where we expect almost 90% turnout this year, is November 3rd, and then that's the last big election of this year.
To say, and we do take everything you say seriously. But we don't know what, sometimes, even though we could be in a cluster here, we need to have you come out and tell us things. So we can also look and have answers for you. the last several years, we have worked collectively as a team. I know Pat and Thomas, you were bringing up some issues regarding, folks are always coming up to us. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Just like any family. If you don't have the funds for it, you can't do it. Once again, this year, we're going to be reaching out to our town council to make sure we have the funds that we need to make sure your children have the best education that we can provide here in the town of Bloomfield. So we thank you, we thank our educators, we thank our residents, we thank our students for doing the best they can. Matter of fact, we were listening tonight regarding our young people collecting food and shoes. You know, I felt so good in my heart that our young people have the empathy to see that our other folks sometimes just don't have shoes or clothes that we can provide, we can give something back to someone. So thank you. And lastly, to our teacher of the year, Marcus Jennings. Once again, we're showcasing our dedicated teachers, you know, and once again, those dedicated teachers providing the education that your children want. So everything works hand in hand. Thank you very much. Happy New Year. Ended my comments.
Thank you. Ms. Eastman.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you to the principals for coming out. I do want to congratulate Mr. Jennings. I had the opportunity to see his teachings firsthand one day, and I was thrilled at what I saw, knowing how difficult my son can be sometimes. I'm happy to say that Mr. Jennings is able to get through to him and some of the other students. I also want to address the foreign language issue that one of the parents brought up. That was a concern of mine as well. My son started in 7th grade with a foreign language, and now there's this interruption in his learning, and I think that's actually going to be to his detriment. You know, come high school when maybe it starts back up again, and maybe there's kind of a lack in his learning in that area. So I'm too concerned about that. Hopefully we can remedy that situation as well. Congratulations to the BHS athletes. I've seen a lot of articles out there about our track stars, and I'm very happy to see that. We have some wonderful student athletes. And also, I'm going to end on this, hoping that we can have some very fruitful conversations with the town council. Like Mr. Ike said, everyone is concerned about the money issue, and we want to make this a great year for our students. We want to give them the resources that they deserve, and we want to take some of the pressure off of the teachers. We know all the educators, principals, everyone is working really hard and doing the best you can with what you have, and we do appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
Happy New Year to everybody. I just basically want to say I thank the teachers, the administrators, everybody. I know you guys have been working hard. We see it, we know it, and we appreciate it. If you have never been told you've been appreciated, you have been appreciated. Don't think you haven't. All I basically want to say is we have come a long way. We still got some distance to go, but we're gonna get there. All I ask is that we continue to work as a team, and we're going to be just fine.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and Happy New Year. As everyone has said, 2019 was real heavy. So we're moving on to 2020, and hopefully we'll lighten the load a little bit and be able to do what we're all charged to do, whatever that may be in your life. You know, as we sit around the board, in particular, we're talking about our position here on the board, and I would like the viewing audience to understand that we are here to have a purpose, and we are here to make a difference. And my hope and my prayer is that we do what we're supposed to do, and not just sit around and just do whatever we think is, or whatever is said, and just agree. And that we're having an opportunity to just share and be transparent and work with the town to make sure that our students receive the resources that they need. And I'd really like to just comment about Mr. Jennings. And Mr. Jennings was one of the most impactful teachers in my student's life. And my son really admired him. Not only my son, but a lot of the young men that were in his classroom. He was one of the most profound teachers. And at graduation this year, Mr. Jennings came to the 2019 graduation, and all of the, I have many pictures of him with most of the students and the young men. And that's why we've been talking about encouraging students and teachers that look like and represent our students to get them into the school system, because it's very important when you have a strong leader like Mr. Jennings. And it's not only about the academics, it's about that role model. And we need them to understand, and us to understand, that role models are so important. He was very impactful, not so, again, academically, yes, but a person just to have a role model or somebody that they can see and achieve goals and dreams just like Mr. Jennings is very important and fruitful. And lastly, I'd just like to say that this is a solemn situation. You may have heard about this on the news today. And to Mr. Maletti, one of the students that lost their life today in Hartford was a Bloomfield High alum. He played football with our boys, and a couple of them were at my house before I left today, and they were in a really sad situation, 19 years old. And we just need to pray for their families and pray that our children remain safe. And, you know, if any counseling is available, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's a sad place, and we just have to encourage them to stay strong in bad times like this. And like I said, it was a very sad situation, but we just have to pray that they are protected. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I will also, because I was made aware of this young man who died. It was over the weekend, right? Today. Oh, is it today? Yeah, yeah. And it's one who has been through it. It's never, ever easy. Never, ever easy. To follow up on Ms. Davis's comments, you know, Mr. Jennings has made an impact. She talked about the boys. I'll talk about the girls because I have a granddaughter who's a junior at the high school now that basically Mr. Jennings saved her. He saved her in his own special way. And I will always be grateful to him for what he does with all of our students. Just a reminder, and I'm speaking because Mrs. Bolton has given a pass because of her voice, but she did want me to remind everybody of the high school winter concert tomorrow, right? The Thursday. Today's the 14th, okay. Thursday at the high school, what time? 7 o'clock. And as many of you can get out and support those wonderful musicians, they would love to have you there. And kind of finally, I've already wished everybody a Happy New Year, but remember, January 20th, Monday, January 20th, is Martin Luther King Day. And that's the day that we celebrate the birth of a great man. And those of us that may happen to have the day off, don't use it as a day off. Do something positive. Do something in memory of the legacy that he has left for us. Take your kids to the library. Take your kids to church. Do something with your children. And it's very important that you maintain that legacy. You keep the hope, you keep the dream alive. Mr. Ike? Is there a second?
Second.
We are adjourned.